people don't burn out because they're working a lot. They burn out because they're working on a lot on things that don't light their fires. There's that flip side quote that says, you want to lose good people? Show them that you tolerate bad ones.
Welcome to Earnings Unleashed, a podcast powered by Floatpays. My name is Andisa Liba. I am going to be the host and the conversation convener for the series. Our goal for this series is to invite business leaders to come and speak to us about all things employee wellness. How do we elevate the employee experience? How do we accelerate our efforts? And how do we find best strategies that we can, leverage off of each other to ensure that we are continuously progressive in our thoughts around what the employee landscape looks like for today, for tomorrow, and for the future. With me in studio today, we've got Mr. Themba Chakela, who is the Chief People Officer at BluSky. Good sir, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Themba, before we jump into the nuts and bolts of what we're going to be discussing today, perhaps for the benefit of our audience, won't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what your business does?
Sure. So I'm the people guy at BluSky. So my remit is all things people, from HR ops through to culture and employee experience. So at BluSky, we see ourselves very much as a digital transformation partner. We've grown off a Salesforce base, and we've managed to operate at various levels within our clients in the Salesforce space. We've expanded into experience design, data analytics, and cloud. But the real idea is to help our customers with their digital transformation journeys.
Amazing. I mean, I love that introduction because it really kind of cements the purpose of our conversation today. And really the place we want to land and anchor is the future of work and what are some of the leading trends that are shaping the human capital landscape. So I certainly think we have got the right person in studio to have that conversation with us today.
Thank you.
So, Themba, for a lot of business leaders, the future of work continues to be an ongoing concern, from technological platforms that are being integrated into our systems to rethinking what are some of these platforms we can use to enhance the people experience. What are some of the latest trends that you've seen in your space or some of the ones that you are trying to integrate into your organization?
I think more importantly than the future of work, I think the recent past of work has more of a determining factor on that. Yeah. So in my organization, we have lots of the younger demographic represented. Our average age is about 24, 25. I skew that age horribly, so we consider me as an outlier. But when we think about the people in my business, a lot of them started work during the pandemic. First job, first up. 100% remote. You're a consultant, yet you have never consulted to anybody, in IRL, in real life, as the youth say. And that's where we find ourselves today. We find ourselves in a market that's going, bring back the human touch, the consultative behavior, the trusted advisor. I'm not calling you about lines of code anymore and how to fit bits and bytes together. I need you to come in and sit in my business and experience how we work, and then apply your knowledge as a veneer, as a amplifying veneer onto my business. Because they call us in not to do stuff that they do. They want our help to do things better. So that puts a bit of pressure on our workforce that we have to respond to. So we are grappling with the same things that everybody else is grappling with. If I say hybrid on this podcast, I'm sure somebody will throw a virtual chair at me. But that work from site balance, that work from client balance, how many productive hours are there in a day? The pandemic showed us that people can work 20-hour days when they have nothing else to do but work. And it was more as a result of needing an outlet for all this pent-up energy that we had sitting indoors all the time. So we sat behind our laptops and tried to approximate the 2019 world of work, which is long gone. So I think what we are faced with now is trying to decipher what does the ever evolving normal, right? Because new normal is gone, right? But the ever evolving normal, what does that look like, and what does it mean for the people who are our clients as HR practitioners.
Yeah. And speaking of hybrid, because I really want to stay with what you've just said, because I think it really leads quite nicely to, I guess, the next conundrum. I think a lot of business leaders are I think are struggling with and wrestling with, and that is, how do you continue to introduce or rather maintain key initiatives that help to strike the balance between a thriving workforce alongside with commercial deliverables in that hybrid space, because of course we know that humans are social animals, right? Like we have an innate need to want to be together, to congregate together, and yet we're still trying to find the balance and appease for those who aren't so social, right? Who are quite happy to work behind their screen in the comfort of their own home. So I mean, how does a leader then balance that? Because it is an important balance to ensure that the pendulum swings in the right direction.
Absolutely. And a big part of what we do is to make sure that the pendulum doesn't just stick on one side, right? So as practitioners, we have to become comfortable with the oscillating nature of work, which previously was like, look, you're at the office 9 to 5. Like, there's even that song about it.
Yeah.
And that was work. Now it's like 9 to 5 and then maybe 9 to 10. And then because I did 9 to 10, I can actually start at 11 the next day. But I also, it's contextually dependent and industry dependent. I think you and I were at an HR exec dinner the other night, and one of our peers who works in the cement business just said, guys, like, for me, this is not a conundrum. You can't pack cement at home. And some of our retail colleagues were talking about specific roles in their business. Like, the shelves don't pack themselves remotely.
Right.
And as a result, they have used the momentum created by the revenue generating roles in their business to dictate the pace for the rest of the business. And I envy them that a little bit. I technically work in a business where if you have a laptop, brains, and Wi-Fi, like that, wherever you are can be an office, which then means you lose out of the things that make us social human beings. So we when we started the hybrid journey, so I wrote on the whiteboard at the office, work from home is dead, long live hybrid. Because we needed to send the message out that you're coming back to the office for some things. And we put up 3 C's. It's to cook, collaborate, and commiserate.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
So that was the original rallying call. And millennials will humble you. They're like, cook what? Collaborate with who? And commiserate for what? Like, I don't need new friends.
Right.
So, what ended up being like a social call became a policy-driven one, where we're now sitting at, you work a fixed number of days from site, client, or office, and the rest is remote. Not from home, it's remote. And that's the balance that we're trying to strive now. And the data points, and this is where, millennials will test you. So when they ask you, come into the office for what? You can have a principled argument with them and it'll get you nowhere. What you should have with them is a data-driven argument. So I can show, based on productivity metrics, client feedback, and even pull on things like our EAP stats to say, look what happens to these indicators when we've had a month of everybody coming into the office. Less referrals to EAP, although I mean that link is tenuous, but
Sure.
you get this feeling in the office, and people connect with each other more. And for the first couple of weeks, we had, oh, so you are Themba, you look different in real life,
Right.
and or somebody just going, damn it, I don't know how to solve this challenge, and because Paco is sitting across the desk, not at home on his internet connection, Paco goes, I actually fixed that this morning. Here's how you do it. Paco spent 2 hours figuring it out, and Tabi Singh spends 5 minutes because Paco is showing her. So these are the things that I think we need to protect and intentionally encourage.
I love that, and I think I love that example because I think it brings me to my next question, and particularly in a lot of businesses now, right? Like you're seeing the shift with all of us having multi-generational workforces
Yeah.
with very different expectations of what the work environment needs to look like or what it needs to feel like. And in fact, you alluded to it earlier that a lot of your youngsters started out virtually, where those of us who have been mid-career hires,
Yeah.
we were, institutionalized to believe that the construct of work takes a certain shape and feel. How do we then, as leaders, manage these very, very vastly different expectations between, these multi-generational workforce?
Yeah, it's a lot, right? And you can either deal with the full complexity of it, and I'm not wired that way or smart enough to look at all of this complexity and try to manage it down. So the approach we have taken is we've gone, who owns every single cent that we hope to earn this year? It's our clients.
Yeah.
What do they want? So when our biggest client says we're back full time in the office, it would be nice to see you guys around, we understand that that's a nice, not so subtle hint that they expect to see people with blue sky hoodies in their environment. They expect to walk to somebody at a desk, not phone them on Teams. And we align our workforce that way. What we don't want to end up is having, Themba sitting at a client site, phone in the office going, guys, I'm the only one here. Nobody at the client is here. They're all working remotely. But because of your work from site policy, I don't want to get sanctioned for not doing it. So I'm just going to hang out here. Me and Bravose at the gate, who's the gentleman who manages safety.
Yeah.
I hear 5 days a week or 3 days a week. So we've tried to align it that way. And the one thing that we can all agree on, racial demographics, where you sit in the chronological order of age, is that we're in business to unlock value for our clients.
Right.
And our clients generally know the best way to get that done in their environments. We're applying capability and capacity to help them out. So that's how we've tried to simplify it.
That's a very interesting, I think, way of problem solving, because I think to your point, you either can respond, I think, to the environment, i.e. in this case, the expectations of your client, and then align to that, because ultimately that's where your bread comes from, right? Or you can then kind of try and argue the semantics of it. Earlier you alluded to, to policy making, as it relates to hybrid. How have you ensured that you've maintained the spirit of the culture whilst also simultaneously instituting a policy? Because I think also, the implementation of policy, and when you have to roll it out, it can get a bit sticky. So, without it being a stick and carrot, argument, how do you seamlessly take people on the journey as part of that policy making in how the organization is evolving?
Yeah. So I guess first up, the only people that don't see policy as stick are probably the people that enjoy writing policy. So by the time you have to put something down on paper, you would have hoped that you have nudged. There've been a series of gentle nudges that have either succeeded or failed.
Yep.
But now you need. So I use policy to make the company position unequivocally clear. So nobody can argue with what the company position is. So that's the framework and the guardrails. What you then need to do is that square is never empty. That's where the spirit of the policy and common sense need to apply. So you know that you're falling afoul of policy if you aren't working 3 days a week from a client site or an office site. But if your child has fallen out of a tree at school and you are the person that they call and you're a single mother and you're on a client call, feel free to type "be right back" or "excuse me, have an emergency to take care of. I'll listen to the recording and go handle that thing." So, there's I don't know who to attribute the quote to, but they talk about companies that are thick on policy are thin on culture, and companies that are thick on culture can have very thin policies. So there's always that balance, and there's always a bunch of people on the one side of the spectrum that will do the right thing no matter what.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, their nasty cousins live on the other side of the
Sure.
spectrum, and there's people that will not do the right thing, regardless of whether you put it in policy or offer popcorn at the office. But you have to create a world that's more comfortable for the people that identify and align with what you're trying to do culturally than those that aren't. Because there's that flip side quote that says, you want to lose good people, show them that you tolerate bad ones. And then the shift happens. So earlier when I spoke about taking a client view, that's just to reduce complexity and give us a single point of reference for that we can color all these other situations against. And you touched on we both touched on the age challenge, and people being in their first jobs. It's actually the people that were working pre-pandemic that proved to be the biggest challenge, because they made the biggest life adjustments.
Correct.
Right? They're the ones who got the, I don't want to call it saving, but no longer had to spend as much money on petrol. People adjusted their home situations. Some people had to. Nannies and the various people who sit within your familial ecosystem had to go. And then when it came time to talk about whether they should come back, you're going, but hold on, my kids have grown 3 years during the pandemic. My eldest became a teenager. He needs very different things now than he did then. So we sat down and took decisions around what kind of help do we need, and how have we rejigged our lives.
Yeah, you're quite right, and I think we take so much for granted in how that short period, which felt like incredibly long, and how it's shifted the way we see life, the way we've reorganized ourselves, the way we perceive or rather understand our needs, and how better do we recalibrate and create different ecosystems that support who we are and ultimately how we show up in the workplace.
Yeah.
Speaking of culture, we're seeing a lot of influence from, I think, socially conscious movements, and I think our employees' participation in generally in their personal capacity, seeping in and almost influencing what some cultural norms need to be or not to be. And I guess the question is, when we look at trends and how do we reshape and rethink about the workplace, like what are some of your views? Because I think there are some movements that can be considered to be controversial. There's some movements that are necessary for, a societal shift. How do we better oscillate between these two worlds of what's necessary and what speaks to humanity, and the things that are really quite far left? And maybe this question in and of itself is a controversial question to ask.
I don't know. I think if businesses are clear about what they require of their people, and they're honest about the kind of people that need to deliver that in the organization, it's counterproductive to close any segments out. So, for various reasons, I guess, it would be, I tell this story all the time about a previous company I worked in, and it was Halloween. And one of the developers came in wearing the full Scream outfit, right, including a bloody knife next to his desk, and he was typing. And Usis Mavis, who was the person that took care of us from a janitorial service perspective, came in and says, comes into my office, and she's in half. And she's like, no, Themba, I can't work in an organization that tolerates Satanists. I won't do it. I'm a Christian woman. My beliefs, I can't have somebody that worships the devil sitting in these offices. I'm like, what do you mean? And she goes, no, upstairs, somebody's sitting in a black robe with a mask on. That's Satan. And I'm like, wait, you know what day it is today? She goes, what day is it? I'm like, it's the 31st of October. So she goes, so what? And I'm like, well, there's Halloween, and our developers are quite closely attuned to, the entertainment world and all of these
Yeah.
things. And this guy's actually dressed up as a character from a movie, and here's the movie. And yes, it isn't very pleasant, but
Yeah.
it's Jasper underneath that mask. And she goes, oh, Jasper. Oh, okay, he's such a nice young man. And those are the things you deal with. What you need to be clear about are, I think, the beliefs and behaviors that are amplifying and tolerated with the organization, and the ones that aren't. So if I hear somebody make a disparaging remark about gender,
Yeah.
no matter how small it is, I'm the guy that will stop and go, Langa, not here, man. Like, I get it. I don't agree with your view. I don't even think it's a view that should be held, but it's yours. But here, there's no place for you telling the person sitting next to you, just because she's female, that she should take your coffee cup to the kitchen. That's not going to work. And in fact, for the rest of the week, you'll be taking everybody's coffee cups to the kitchen because I'm executively saying so.
Right.
And then he'll look at me like, am I serious? I'm not serious, but I hope my point is made. So I think it is a balance. And there's so much stuff out there, right?
There is.
What did Devandre call it when he was presenting? The agitation that I've been trying to actively put into the office space in the last month is one around civic responsibility and the rest, given where we are heading to on Wednesday. And not to punt a party, but just to say, guys, like, here's all of you are older than 18. There's something that you're going to do or not do on Wednesday. But have you thought about it more broadly than, what you've seen on X and WhatsApp and other things that you aren't sure about? And then you get, but Themba, my local councillor, and I'm like, these are the conversations we need to be having.
Yeah.
And they can't happen remotely, because remotely you're going from meeting
Unfortunately.
to meeting to meeting.
Correct. Yeah. Themba, I want to bring us back to technology. And I mean, I know you have a great affinity to tech. You like tech toys. How do you find that for you as a leader? How do you better align your leadership, style against the backdrop of technology? Because we're seeing such a massive surge of tech platforms, and I don't know about you, my LinkedIn email is littered, with platforms that are mushrooming up every day. A lot of them, are complementary to, I think, the leaders we aspire to become, and the workplaces we are working so hard to curate. And some of them are disruptive in a healthy way. How do we strike that balance between how do we show up as leaders, and how do we use technology in a healthy, meaningful way?
Yeah. So I shared this story on another conversation I was having earlier in the week. So from Lesotho, my home is quite rural Lesotho. So we still do a bit of farming there. And I remember going to visit my grandfather once, and they got a new plow. And I geeked out over this plow, right? It's got like 7 more blades than the last one. And this one, you can actually do this and do that. And it's got you don't lift it up by yourself. You lift it up with a lever. And my grandfather sits there and he's looking at me. And then I'm going, so Granddad, why aren't you excited about this plow? And he goes, my boy, I never get excited about the tools. I get excited about the outcome. So I'm looking to fill the maize meal silo, want to be able to sell some, and I understand that this plow is 20 million times better than the last one. But I'm not geeked out about the plow. I'm geeked out about the fact that it'll reduce the amount of work, and boom, 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 boom. And that's sort of the same approach I try to take with technology. I still geek out, but I then sit down and go, what performance enhancing impact does it have on myself, on my team, on my organization? And if there is a compelling yes on all three, then it's probably worth investigating or investing in. If AI is listening now, I'm probably in trouble in like 10 years' time, because I see it in its current configuration as being able to take over a lot of the the transactional stuff, especially within my environment. The data analysis, the data capture, all of those things. I'd like to use tech tools to let my people become more human,
Yeah.
and hopefully, unless AI aspires to be more human than us, which it might get to, but right now it's aspiring to learn. And the things that Sally has learned about data capture, she has learned and finished. Now we can teach a bot or an algorithm to do the same thing, and it might be a little bit more excited about doing this rote work. And because it's excited continuously, it doesn't make mistakes when it's bored or worried about other things. And it doesn't enter my year of birth, gets my whole ID right, but except for my year of birth. And then somebody's calling me to wish me happy 50th on my 48th.
Yeah.
And then it's like an awkward moment, right? You're trying to tell this person, I know, look, I'll take it, but it's only for 2 years' time. So I think you have to look at what performance enhancing capability does it have. Like, get excited about it, but then very quickly try and figure it out. So when ChatGPT or OpenAI announced 4.0, not 4.0, 4.0, and O is for optimum last week, I watched the live broadcast of the features with my 12-year-old, and it started talking about picture recognition, and I said, okay, let's see. So I took a snapshot of an HR graph, and I put it into ChatGPT, and I said, please analyze this for me. Did this thing not give me a trend analysis, insights, and recommendations for something that would have taken me 30 minutes?
Yeah.
And all I did with this thing is I went to say, cool, and then on top of this, we can slap these recommendations. HR can do them. These ones, the managers can do, and here's some other ones we can strap on. But that was literally on the night of the new functionality being released.
Amazing.
And I try to talk to at least one bot a day.
How's that going?
It's going well. Like you can ask it anything, and then if it doesn't know, it'll tell you.
Amazing.
But that's, I think, where we need to get to with tech. You have lived through tech hype cycles before, and it usually goes from like super complex, and you need to be Albert Einstein to use SAP. And then it goes all the way down to today. If you can match color blocks, and you know that that yellow and green make blue. I think I've got that wrong. But if you just understand how to mix colors, you can actually put together a full supply chain module for a manufacturing company.
Yeah.
Because you just have to pick the colors that match.
Right. Love that. By the way, very profound statement that by your grandfather. So that really resonates.
Yeah.
So very, very wise man. I think also staying with technology, and I think you've alluded to the changes and how they really come at us thick and fast. How do we best support employees through some of this change fatigue? Because it's so much, and often you have to introduce parallel systems at the same time, or one after the other, and people are just change fatigued, or at least this is the the sense that we get anecdotally when we try and introduce one more system or overlay the system with another system. How do we best help people navigate some of that change, because not everyone is good and accepting of change.
Yeah. So about 2 years ago, I think we were at the HR summit. And I brought my whole team along, and they sort of we decided which talks we're going to go to. And so I'm like, phone them. I'm like running late for another. I'm like, guys, where are you? They're like, no, we're in this room with this talk. They're about to start. Go. So I run into this room and I push my way in, and then the talk starts. And then I look around and like none of my people are there. So I'm like, guys, where are you? What's going on? They're like, no, we thought we needed somebody in the burnout and work pressure session. So we're actually in, I think it was running in heels, ladies' challenges in corporate. And that's the one that I'd wanted to go to. But these guys decided that no, they needed representation in the burnout one. But one of the profound comments that came out of there is that people don't burn out because they're working a lot. They burn out because they're working on a lot on things that don't light their fires.
Yeah.
So anybody that's change fatigued, and I'm not belittling, the whole change fatigue phenomenon. I think it's real, but there's going to be very limited wiggle room for people that are tired of change. Like, it's not going to stop. So, I ask this question all the time when I start off change management projects. I say, how many of you are change fatigued? And hands go up. And how many of you are change resistant? And hands go up. And I said, okay, guys, if the following change happened to you, how resistant and fatigued would you be? You win the lotto tonight. Huge change in your life. But how many of you are gonna say, "Yo, I'm so tired of this change. Just take the millions. I don't want it." And how many of you are gonna go like, "I resist this money. I don't like. Don't put it in my account." And the difference between that is that when you win the lotto, you win the ability to do more things that you wanted to do in life.
Right.
Now, if you take learning, is learning not the same thing? You are learning things that allow you to do more things in the world of work that you're in, putting you in a better position to be competitive. You can go down paths that you never thought possible. And if you find flow in that space, you probably don't have time to feel tired. So the last time you were in flow, you started doing something, and then you started doing it at 8 o'clock, and then you look up at it's 1 a.m. and you're still wide awake and you're still buzzing because you have been doing stuff that lights your fire. Now give me 20 spreadsheets and you'll see the reverse of flow. So I think organizations have to do more work in positioning people in the right lane of their businesses. Because there are people that don't deal well with constant change. But those people are probably the ones that deal with long, systemic, high change that peaks and then drops and then sustains. And then there's people that want to change all the time.
Yeah.
So if you're implementing an ERP in your business, don't put your rapid change people, because that thing needs stamina.
Right.
If you're putting in a modular timesheet or even a financial wellness solution like Floatpays, you can get that done in 60 days. Put your bright-eyed, bushy-tailed rabbits on it, and they'll get it and they'll get it done. They are not the people to sustain it. You'll need some super users and support because they want to move on to the next thing. So I think from a change perspective, unfortunately, change is, or fortunately, because it's a big reason why I have a job, change is going to be a constant. I tell the guys at the office, like 3 things are constant, right? Death, taxes, and change. And all 3 are equally unavoidable, and hopefully one happens much later.
Yeah.
I'd rather live through 1 million tax cycles than, face the prospect of not being alive tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you need to, I think organizations and leaders need to identify those people in their team. So if you haven't sat down and thought deeply about what are the strengths and development areas of my team and how do I position them, yes, they must work on their development areas. But guys, Themba Chakela is never going to become passionate about Excel. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. You can send me, you can get Bill Gates to tutor me. I won't love that piece of tech the same way I naturally move towards PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Because I'm visual, I'm expressive, broad strokes. So on my team, I have somebody that's as excited about Excel and detail as I am about broad strokes and PowerPoint. And when we are together, that's when the magic happens.
Magic, absolutely, absolutely. I guess last question from me, Themba. We're seeing in recent years the symbiotic relationship between technology and wellness. And perhaps through the lens of my experience and the work that we do, financial wellness. What are some of your views around, I think, what this relationship needs to look like or maybe evolve into outside of the traditional norms that have been, part and parcel of, of the workspace?
Yeah, it's time, hey? Like my responsibility ends at paying you a salary, which was, probably what my parents lived through. And then, when I started working in my distant youth, 2000 was 24 years ago. It's scary. But there it was, you get a salary and benefits like Provident Fund and medical aid, right? It'll always grow and become more. And I think that the responsibility is greater. And I don't know if it's a South African thing, but the amount of explaining of simple things relating to money that organizations do now with the I guess the younger demographics coming in. And then look, I can't speak for all demographics, right?
Sure.
But I'm sure it'll differ from institution to institution or life experience. But I'd never done a family budget until I had a family. And I shouldn't be learning how to do a family budget when I have a family. I should be doing that
Right, prior.
without the pressures of a family. Or you hear it. I mean, and this is why, again, I love millennials. Like one of our guys walks up to our CFO and asks him to help him with his tax form. I'm like, in my day, like that's not a CFO question. But to his credit, our CFO treated that question with the same seriousness and respect as if he had been asked for a 5-year forecast on one of our business units by our CEO. And the young man that had asked the question felt that he had got a great answer. And 2 days later, I hear him explaining the same thing to one of his peers. So I do think the responsibility I have, as an HR practitioner, I have to be aware of solutions like Floatpays. I have to understand that ecosystem. I have to understand what it means to what it would mean to my employee base. I possibly may have a duty to also push those things into the organization. But we had you don't want to be talking about benefits and medical aid on the other side of an accident that's just happened, right? And that's usually where these things go wrong. So maybe the duty on employers and HR practitioners specifically is to think about the things that can go wrong, have the conversations about those things going wrong before they go wrong. So at the very worst, if something goes wrong that they could have done something about and they did nothing, at least they know that they could have done something.
Right. Well, Themba, thank you so much for your time and I think for having the conversation with us. Where can people find you for the benefit of our audience? If they want to engage with you after this episode, where can they connect with you?
Yeah, I'm probably easiest to find on LinkedIn. Themba Chakela is my handle. I got rid of Batman by day long time ago. I had to change it, right, when you hit your management levels. But LinkedIn is probably the best place.
Excellent.
Don't use any other handle than my first name and first and surname anywhere else. So there's the other socials, but I keep those social. So if you want to know how my mountain biking and basketball is going, there is Instagram for that.
Right.
We've been curating content for our kids for the last 18 years on Facebook. So that's largely for them. But
yeah,
all my professional stuff sits on LinkedIn, largely.
Amazing. Well, again, thank you for your time. And that's it from us.